Hi class, today we're looking at Chapter 1, Lesson 2, Words and Expressions. Our essential question is how can you translate verbal phrases into numerical expressions, and how you use the order of operations to evaluate those expressions. So again, a numeric expression has both numbers and symbols, which are our signs: add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Now with order of operations, there are two ways to solve. We can use our PEMDAS or GEMMA, but we do need to remember that order is important. Now let's look at the list of words that we can be used when we are representing each operation. In our first column, we have words that talk about addition. So some words that we can use for addition are add, total, in all, increased by, more than, plus, and of course there are many more. Now for our column in subtraction, some words that we could use are subtract, difference, decreased by, less than, minus, or subtracted from. Now with multiplication, we have words such as multiply, times, product, of. Each could mean multiply. Now for division, we could also use words such as divide, into, half, meaning that we divide it by 2, and the word per also can mean division. So now let's look at a few of these practice problems. We want to write a numerical expression for each verbal phrase. So for letter A, the total amount of money if you have $9 and $12. So the key word in this case is total. And since we know that total means to add, we're supposed to add the 9 plus 12. And that is your numerical expression because we know it includes numbers and the symbol, the sign of the addition sign. In part B, the age difference between 15 years old and 10 years old. So in this case, our key word is going to be difference. So our difference means to subtract. And we take the number 15 and we subtract the number 10. And that is our numerical expression, 15 minus 10, because that's what difference means. In letter C, the cost of 10 yo-yos if each costs $3. Now, this one is where you would actually have to use the word each. We know that they want to know how much 10 of the yo-yos would cost if each one is 3, meaning that their one is 3. So we want to know that 10 is going to be multiplied by the number 3. So in this case, the key word is each, and each would mean to multiply. Then in letter D, we have the number of students in each group if 15 students are divided into 5 equal groups. So the key word here is divided into. And that means that we would take the amount of students, 15, and divide them into 5 equal groups. So 15 divided by 5. Then in letter E, the number of students on 3 buses if each bus holds 20 students. So again, that keyword each. And we know that there are 3 buses, and we want to know how each holds 22 students. So we want to know the total amount, meaning that we would have to multiply. Now in letter F, the amount of money earned if she mowed the lawn for $15 and walked the dog for $4. So in this case, the key word would be the amount of money earned. And that means a total. So we take the $15 and we add it to the 4. And that is our numeric expression. Please go ahead and turn your paper over to the back side now. Now, in step number 1, we want to solve what is inside the grouping symbols first. So some grouping symbols would be parentheses, brackets, and braces. So anytime we see a value inside of a grouping symbol, that's simply just going to say that I have to solve what's in there. So for example, if I were to have 5 plus 2, then plus 4, I have to solve what's inside of those parentheses first. So I'd have to solve 5 plus 2 first. Now in step 2, you solve exponents. Now if you were to have exponents in a problem, for example, if you had 3 to the second power plus 7, you have to solve the 3 to the second power first. So 3 to the second power means 3 times 3. And then you end up with 9, and then you can add 9 to 7 and get your final answer. So make sure that in step number 2 you solve the exponents. And finally, in step number 3, you evaluate multiplication and division from left to right. Then you evaluate addition, subtraction from left to right. So again, if I were to have a value such as 5 plus 2 multiply by 4 divided by 2. I notice that I do have grouping symbols, and I do also have division and multiplication. But in this case, I would solve the grouping symbols before I would solve my multiplication of 2 times 4. But if I did not have the grouping symbols, if I just had simply 2 and it says times 4, then I would have to solve 2 times 4 first. So this would have to be solved before I'm allowed to divide by 2. And that's because there's no grouping symbols. So make sure you pay very close attention to when you're looking at the operation. So again, in step 3, you evaluate multiplication and division from left to right first, then evaluate addition, subtraction from left to right. Now let's start with our practice evaluating each expression using order of operation. So for letter A, the first step I want to make sure is that I don't have any grouping symbols, and since I don't, I can move on to the next step, and there's no exponents. So now I'm going to move to step 3, and I'm going to multiply, divide first, then add, subtract second. So in this case, I have to multiply the 3 times 5, and I end up with 20 minus 15. Now I can evaluate 20 minus 15, and my answer is 5. So I do have to solve the multiplication before I'm allowed to subtract. Now in part B, the same idea. Because it's division and multiplication in this case, I always go from left to right. So I start with 30 divided by 5 and I get 6. Then I times it by 3 and my answer is 18. So the rule is if it's multiplication and division, I just have to do whichever one comes first. And since division came first on the left, I have to solve that first. Now in example C, go ahead and try this one on your own and then check your answer, as well with letter D and letter E. Now for example A, which operation do you need to complete first? So in this case, I would have to complete the multiplication first. So you would multiply first. Then number 2, in example B, why is multiplication not done first? It's because it's not on the left. So multiplication is on the right. And you must solve from left to right. Now, in example C, why is subtraction done first? And in this case, subtraction is done first because it's inside the grouping symbols. So subtraction is in grouping symbols. And in example D, why do you start with 7 plus 5? We start with 7 plus 5 because when we have more than one grouping symbol, you start with the innermost grouping symbol. Must begin with innermost grouping symbol. And finally, for example E, why not start with dividing 60 by 2? Because in this case, we have technically two different groups. We have a group in the numerator and a group in the denominator. And the first rule is to always solve what's inside grouping symbols. So technically, you solve groups first. So solve numerator, then denominator. And then at the very end, you can solve by dividing. Now go ahead and take a few minutes and do the extra practice on your own.